What's up, guys? Chimp here with another quick market update. And a lot's gone on in the last couple of days. I mean, Bitcoin has basically come back down to around 112, 113. Just sort of the high level picture of it. And the question is, what's next? And again, like a lot of people I'm seeing are on Twitter are talking about technical levels and um, new paradigm and blah, blah, blah. Like you'll hear a lot of rhetoric. But the question is, ultimately, what is next for this asset, right? And I keep going back to this question because it just keeps popping into my mind. Who is left to buy, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about historical examples as well. But first of all, who's left to buy? So first, let's ask that question. Now, the stock market's been down for a few days, but overall it's been up, right? You know, from the lows, we went from 16K to 24K on the NASDAQ. And stocks are trading basically 2-3% off their highs, right? So why is Bitcoin so weak? It goes back to this idea, and I talked about this. You know, when stocks are up only, Bitcoin, you know, it's generally speaking a better environment for Bitcoin. But you look at the ETF, right? Like I keep mentioning this, the ETF was a big proponent of inflows from April to August. And when you look at what they're doing right now, like basically flat or outflows, like nothing's really going on, right? And so very similar to sort of what happened in October to December. Like it seems like the market can have like a brief period, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months of euphoric flows, and then things naturally slow down. And the ETF to me is one component, but I think these big treasury companies are a second component. And you hear a lot of people talking about them, and I keep mentioning this. In the short term, these treasuries don't necessarily have to sell, but in the mid to long term, like these things are all like, in one form or another, have major issues, right? Each one sort of has its own distinct issues. For example, like the Pomp Treasury has these, you know, initiation fees and performance fees, like, and I'll show you the Nakamoto one. I mean, this one's like a freaking joke of all jokes. So before I do that, let's just talk a little bit about these treasuries. Sailor's obviously the big boy. He's buying like 50 mil a week. Like he bought 50 mil this week, he bought 20 mil last week. It seems like he can't hit ATMs. It seems like he can't issue more debt. And it seems like he is sort of ran the limit of these preferreds, right? So theoretically speaking, he could issue a fifth class of preferred and sell it at a discount and, you know, hope to get buyers. But for the most part, this guy is done, right? Like I'm thinking about who's the person who comes in marginally and top blasts this market. And these treasuries, for the most part, were a big component of that, and now they're gone, right? You look at someone like Metaplanet. I mean, they bought like 15,000 BTC, and to be fair, like these guys have been buying like still, right? Like their last purchase was let me see if I can find it. They made a purchase a couple days ago. Yeah, like they bought like, you know, $93 million worth. So they're still in the markets, but they won't be for long because their equity price has been, you know, has basically totally collapsed. And like, look at these guys, right? It's a joke, right? They're writing apology letters to their shareholders. At the same time, they're dumping all these shares at the money on their shareholders. So it's like, it's just a complete shit show. Then we have Nakamoto, right? They were supposed to buy $750 million worth of Bitcoin. They only bought 678 million. Clearly, they're out of money, right? And these guys are the biggest joke. I mean, I'm going to show this. This is in their latest SEC filing. The company may provide at its sole cost and expense a full-time cobbler to provide footwear maintenance and related services to their VP of Investor Relations. The cobbler will be paid $275K and eligible to receive grants of preferred equity. What the hell is this, right? They're paying a cobbler $275,000 a year. I mean, look, I've seen, you know, there's obviously some great cobblers out there. I would bet you the average cobbler salary in a first world country is like a fourth of this. Best case. This is like, again, this is the type of shit you see at a top, right? Where it's such bubble behavior. And this is what I talk about when I talk about parasitic behavior. Nakamoto and this position, this specific position, is just one example. These are the types of people who come into the space, they extract money, right? Like the cobblers, let's say they hire a cobbler, right? This guy's extracting a salary out of the marketplace. It's not just Nakamoto. There's so many of these companies out there, and that extractionary process, like, will ultimately be what causes prices to decline, in my opinion. So let's go back to Bitcoin. And I talked a little bit about, hey, there's no marginal, like, who's the buyer to buy, right? Like, I remember asking the same question at the March lows, like March 2020 lows. And when you had that mega liquidation cascade when everyone got wiped out, it was like, who's left to sell? There's literally no one left to sell. And the market ended up climbing up as a result of that. And now it's like the exact same thing in reverse. Now, like, what's my prediction on Bitcoin here? I think it's going to be really, really hard to get back to 124. Exceedingly difficult. Could I see a little bounce here to 116 or maybe 119 and you get some sort of altcoin mania? Like a secondary altcoin mania? Sure, it's possible. But I think this 112 like technical level that people have been bidding, and let's see if I can draw a little rectangle here, right? This like 112 resistance turn support. I think this thing's gonna get cracked, especially like when I look at the big picture, which I've talked about before, which is this swing failure pattern printing. It's like one of the cleanest swing failure patterns. You look at the tops beforehand, by the way, right? You didn't get a swing failure pattern here. But by the way, you did get a swing failure pattern at the inauguration top. A super clean swing failure pattern then. So we've seen this time and time again, like some of these swing failure patterns. We haven't seen some in a while. Like the last one I remember that was pretty clean. Was when this was like a very specific one, and I don't know how many. Actually, no, it wasn't even that one. Sorry. Actually, that was a swing failure pattern at the. This was right before the SVB collapse. There was a second one right here actually, which was very clean. Which was like we ran this 31.5K level, and immediately rejected, and then it started this like bear trend downwards. And so, look, these are pretty rare. And typically the reaction sort of tells you a lot, and the fact that we've like dumped significantly off of it, that's what's sort of hinting to me that like it's probably going to be impossible for 124 to be taken at this point. Okay, let's look at the leverage situation. I've talked about this before, and I'll say it again. Let's see if it'll load. Open interest is down about $15 billion off the highs, which makes sense, but it's $10 billion higher than what it was the last time we were at these levels. So the market's like super leveraged. And again, like we're 2 or 3% off of where we were 2 months ago, and leverage is $25 billion higher, right? Like there's $25 billion more of open interest in the ecosystem. So, and it's gonna load. Let's see how long it takes to load. You could pull this up on Coinalyze, at your own leisure. Like leverage is up. We're tapping the same support a second time. Like I think at some point this thing's gonna crack. Again, we might get some extended chop here. We might even get another leg up. But I think this thing's gonna break. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. I had to mute my mic. Actually, like, again, this is like so nitpicky. We had like a very similar pattern actually in terms of like an SFP and an altcoin rally top when we had the DeFi summer highs. Like 12.5K SFP, bleed back down into this support level, go for an altcoin rally, and then the market rugs. Like I think this 112 level is gonna break at some point. Again, we might get like a rally upwards, like a final leg up, but I think ultimately it's gonna crack. And with all these parasites, with all this leverage in the system, with all this shadow leverage in the system, I think this thing can go significantly lower. Ultimately, time will tell, but I want to show one other indicator, which is Kanye now launched a coin, right? These sorts of like big names launching coins, classic top shit, right? What's an example of this? Trump, right? The Trump meme coin. Something like even a jail stool. I mean, this is like after the fact, right? This is the type of shit that you see when there's extreme froth in the market, when like the trumpets are blasting and you need to be cautious because like you don't see this shit at the lows, right? Trump's launching like a $5 million NFT collection at the lows, or whatever the hell he was doing. He's going full grift. Kanye is going full grift, right? Like Libra's happening, all this shit, and all this shit's extractionary, right? Kanye launching a coin with 90% of the supply in his hands, or whatever it is. Extractionary behavior. Nakamoto saying they're going to hire a cobbler. Extractionary behavior. Again, like one after the other. So, look, I'm very bearish here. Ultimately, we'll see what the price does, but I think it's a matter of time until we go lower. And just be prepared for a environment where prices are trading lower. So we'll see what happens. I'll record another video in the next couple of days, and we'll go from there. So thanks, guys, and until next time, take care.